All right, today I want to talk about changing weight classes. This is a pretty common question, a good topic. I think there are some good principled stuff we can kind of talk about here. So, should you go up? Should you go down? Should you stay the same weight class? How do you make those decisions? First, moving up a weight class. The things we have to really look at are basic physiological things. One, body fat versus muscle mass. What is your body composition? If you are overly high body fat relative to muscle mass, moving up a weight class is a bad idea. You're not maximizing the class you're in already because your body fat is excessive. So first and foremost, you shouldn't be moving up if you're already overweight or having if you have too much body fat. Height relative to your body mass. If you are 6 foot, if you're 5'1" and you weigh 97 kilograms or 98 kilograms, moving up probably not going to be the best option. This is something actually that was an anecdotal story here. Something that you saw a lot of times was the junior athlete who was a super, who was, let's say, 5'7", 5'8". You're an awesome athlete, you're really powerful, really good junior, but you've gained so much body weight now that you really can't go anywhere. You're 5'8", 5'9" at most, and you're a super. You can't just turn into a 190 kilo super, who's 5'9". So it's kind of this position where you may have prematurely moved up weight classes because in your training initially, gaining weight equaled getting stronger. So you just kind of maximize that, and you end up in a place where, moving up a weight class is not possible anymore, but you're too short really to be in the weight class you're in. It's generally going to be accompanied by having excess body fat. It's usually only something that happens to supers too early in their career. Lifters that really probably belong in like a 90, in like a 109 class or a 102 class, maybe are just too heavy, too soon. So your height should dictate your weight class essentially. Can you still increase strength? Can your total go up in your current weight? This is really good. Does your relative strength preclude you from going any higher? If you're a 49 kilo woman and you are squatting, you're front squatting 130 kilos and your back squatting 150, you're probably going to need to gain body weight to get stronger. You're at the limits of what you can do. Conversely, if you're a 89 kilo male and you're front squatting 130 kilos and your back squatting 140 kilos, and your snatch and clean and jerk are proportional, you can probably get stronger without having to gain much muscle mass. So, understand that you should be near your genetic limit, near your limit in that body weight and your relative strength before really moving up to maximize it. And this is something that is an anecdotal story here again with some of my lifters. There's actually a lot more room than you might think to get stronger in the same weight class. The initial move for people to right away jump up a weight class to be more competitive is probably not the first step. The first thing would be to maximize your training. Are you training enough? Are you training properly? Are you spending enough time on the general qualities, on the specific movements? Should you modify that first to make sure you can maximize your strength levels and your physical things before jumping ahead and saying, I need to move up a weight class. And then finally, especially moving a weight class, super important, youth and junior. Really, this is the main thing, the main consideration we have. This is where moving up and down weight classes has its biggest impact on youth and juniors. If you're a youth and a junior, your weight class shouldn't even really be a concern. You shouldn't be focused on exactly what class you are. Gaining weight, moving from weight class to weight class should be a natural progression. There's no way that you start lifting and as a 58 or 59 kilo girl and you're 5'3", or 5'6" or something, that you should not be moving up a weight class. long-term planning would dictate that you're going to be, much, much heavier because of your height. So understand that youth and junior should basically always be moving up weight classes as a natural process. It's really not so much a matter of forcing that as a matter of absolutely never reducing your body weight artificially if you're youth or junior. So brings us to the next one, which is moving down a weight class. I would say this is very rarely recommended for people that are still in a developmental stage. And the developmental stage basically being those first 4, 5, 6 years of your lifting, where you're trying to accumulate volume in training to bring your total training volume to a consistent, stable level that is near maximum recoverable volume. So that's the growth of training results, the growth of training volume, moving towards that limit, right? If that limit for you is 15,000 reps a year, then that's the growth stage. You're moving from, day 1 in the gym to day, to year 6 in the gym, where you've started now, at the limit of volume, and you can start kind of developing into a competitive lifter where you're increasing intensity after that. So understand that very rarely recommended if you're still developing, if you're still growing, you're still improving, you're still learning. There's no reason to go down a weight class. Body fat versus muscle mass composition, just like in the going up a weight class. If you're excessively lean, if you're extremely lean, should you drop down a weight class? It's not going to work. It's not going to be a good solution. If you can see your abs year round and you can see the striations and muscles in your shoulders, going down a weight class means you're going to lose a lot of muscle. It's just going to happen. And so, you're sacrificing something to do that. What you'll see with a reduction in body weight is it's always accompanied by at the very best case scenario, by a stunting of progress, where maybe if you're reducing body weight, your progress just kind of slows down or kind of plateaus and doesn't go up or down. That would be the best case scenario, is that you don't lose a lot of strength. Worst case scenario, dropping a weight class is accompanied by also a decrease in performance. Now, for some people, there would be a situation where this is okay, and it would only be a situation where there is a significant benefit, like a record, a team qualification, or the possibility to win because you're moving out of an extremely competitive class, and your total, even if it suffered, would still be competitive in the other class. And this is really only a consideration for athletes that are senior level and really masters level. If you're really lean, you're cutting down a class, it only makes sense in those cases. Finally, staying in the class you're in, which is pretty obvious. The sort of keys here to know whether you should go up or down, to know whether or not you should stay, kind of relate back to what we already talked about, but your relative strength. If you have the ability to continue getting stronger, then there's no reason to not continue doing that. If you think you can still maximize your strength potential and not gain muscle mass, then by all means you should be doing that. If you haven't quite filled out the class yet, if you're a 63 kilo, 64 kilo, if you weigh 63 and you're competing in 64s, you can still go up. If you weigh 64 and you're in the 64s, you can still gain muscle and stay in the same weight class. You should be as muscular as possible in the weight class you're in. So, someone who's a 64 kilo lifter probably should walk around training around 66 or 67, in the far from competition. Cutting weight should become a tool that you use to your advantage, not something that you have to do as I got to drop, the 1 kilo before the meet. You're not maximizing your body weight class. A 49 kilo lifter who wants to be competitive on the world stage, probably going to walk around 53 kilos in training. That's a 10% increase in body weight almost. That's a huge amount. But it's necessary to carry the muscle, to do the training, to tolerate the recovery, tolerate the training and all these things, to be able to maximize results. So it's a carefully orchestrated process. If you want to become better in the weight class, you should be maximizing that weight class by being as muscular as possible. The other ones would be, if weightlifting isn't a huge priority in your life, obviously if you're a hobbyist, if you're doing this for fun, you're doing this to enjoy it, then, consider the health benefits of remaining in your class. Going up a body weight class may not be the best thing to do if you also have, concerns about, your general health, right? You don't need to be bigger and bigger and bigger. It's also a lifestyle thing. If you're just not comfortable being more than, a certain body weight and you're fine with the results, then by all means, stay in that weight class. There's no reason to try feel the pressure to move up if it's not something that's going to bring, it's going to enrich your life. And then, if you really have a hard time with, not cutting weight, or sorry, with cutting weight, and this kind of comes down to maybe there's a couple factors there. The big one would be if you just can't do it, if you just have a hard time cutting weight properly, staying in a weight class and then saying, well, I'm going to maximize this class by getting as big as I can, and then you move up 2 or 3 kilos above the class, and then you cut weight for the class by starving yourself or, eating only what you feel like, and then, dieting down hard, too close to the meat, or trying to cut too aggressively and you do it poorly, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're not maximizing that weight class. You're just, playing one side of the coin, and then the other time you turn around and you're screwing yourself in the end. So big one is like if you're not capable of doing weight cuts properly, then maximizing that class is not worth it. So stay where you're at. And then the other one I think is much more of an issue that you should consider. If you have an eating disorder, if you have had histories of eating disorders or anything, then managing that might be such a psychological strain or stress if it's difficult to move up and down. I wouldn't recommend playing with your body weight a lot if you've had a history of that. I would focus on staying where you're most comfortable. If that means you're a kilo over a weight class, you're competing in a heavier class, but your mental health is stable and it's much better for you to not worry about that, then by all means stay there. There's no need to try and maximize something if you already have other situations going on that might create a really negative scenario in your life. Some practical tips to kind of sort this stuff out. The first is define your goals. Before you do anything, define exactly what it is you want to get out of the sport and what you're willing to do to get there. If you're someone who takes it seriously but loves training for the sake of training, then understand that maybe you don't have to gain every single gram of muscle to be as high above the class as you can be. Live in a place that's comfortable. You might fall into that stay in your weight class category. If your goal is I'm going to go to the world championships and I intend to win a medal, then you better have right next to that goal written down, I'll do whatever it takes, and that would be moving up or down the weight class as necessary. Realistically assess your lifestyles and evaluate if cutting is worthwhile, I would say, is the next thing. Like take a good hard look at your lifestyle, at what you can accomplish, and determine if moving up or down or staying the same is something that is going to be possible. It's very easy to look at your lifestyle and assume that you see, because you see Instagram that people are cutting weight or whatever, everyone's ripped and this and that you can do that too. But you also work a 50-hour week job and you're stressed out, and cooking and preparing meals is really hard. So manage that. Manage what's realistic against what you actually can accomplish, what your goals are. So you have to have that anchor of realism to every decision you make, so you don't end up in a place where you're kind of delusional or lying to yourself about what you can accomplish. You'll be a much better competitor and a much happier person the closer you can get to making legitimately realistic decisions in this regard. The other thing, the last one, is really, is there room to improve with other options? Make sure that you exhaust all other options before deciding exactly what to do with the weight class. This doesn't mean that you take a year to exhaust options. It should just be that you sit down and look at the process and say, hey, can I get stronger? Absolutely. Without gaining muscle mass? Yeah, probably. Can I improve my technique? Yeah, probably. I should do those things first. Can I be a better competitor? Yes, of course. I'll do that first. Those things are all prerequisites to moving up or down a weight class. All right.